welcome to Reelin Films. I do hope that you enjoy this video. Don't forget, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell. Like that you guys can get notified for anything and everything movie and series related here at Reelin Films. I hope you enjoy this video. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys all doing today?
Great,
Good.
great.
That's great. And my first initial question, just to start off the bat, how does it feel that that Bliss was world premiered in Slamdance?
Good.
Thrilled,
It
thrilled.
feels great. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, John, but Virgil Bliss, which was the prequel to Bliss, premiered at Slamdance in 2001. So it's kind of mind blowing that it's 23 years later to have the sequel be premiering there as well.
That I actually did while I was looking for more information about the film, I did find that this was like a sequel of Virgil Bliss, and I did see that it was as well presented in Slamdance. So it's great that you guys had the chance to bring the sequel to the same film festival. Now, in I would like everybody to pitch in in this question. What inspired you all, to go ahead and bring a second, a sequel to the previous film?
Someone, you guys want to do it, or I'll get you started. It just, it came about. I think, for many years, from the moment that we finished Virgil Bliss, I know Clint was always talking about, over the years would say, we should really, we should consider imagining what would happen, what could have happened to Virgil Bliss, at the, where does he go from, it ends in this ramshackle apartment in Brooklyn. Virgil has just killed his best friend with his bare hands, and he's taken the first drink of whiskey, his first drink of alcohol in 12 years. And it's like, okay, now what? And we never did anything with it. And then just sort of as the pandemic was hit, Clint, I think you did hit on something there with it really was sort of a product of the pandemic experience, where we wanted to get together and do something very visceral, something intimate. And I think you're right. I think it was a response to the kind of alienation that we were, social and physical alienation. So maybe take it from there.
Yeah, I think Farrell and I had worked together previously, and we were working on a play called Blackbird, and which is how we met. And we were going to stage the play, and then the pandemic happened, and everything shut down. We couldn't get back in the theaters, couldn't really do anything, just as like everyone else. And so Farrell decided that Farrell also is a director and filmmaker as well. So she wrote a film, and we made it in the desert. And we were talking. We had worked together, and I was talking with Joe, and I said, you know, I'm I'm having this desire to just, I'm feeling this like animal desire to get back to something that's real, something, we're on these devices all the time, and it just feels so isolating. And then with COVID, we have masks on every day, and we can't go in places, and we can't. And I said, it's just, we need to do something. I think also COVID for me really made me think about mortality and about what are we doing with our life? We only have a finite amount of time here, so let's make some more movies. We're artists. This is what we do. We're all working in the business, but we weren't working together. And I said, you know, I really am craving a story about just human interaction, something that's not ironic, something that's not cute or has some strange hook, something that's an honest human story that is and that deals with the problems that we all deal with. And so we all met and we all started to write this story. And we thought, well, let's start with a sequel to Virgil Bliss. Where is he living now? What's going on with him? And and that's kind of how it started.
I mean, additionally, I think that after working together a couple times, I think we had been so excited by each other's work ethic. And I think we had been so excited with each other and collaborating that we were so hungry to collaborate on projects. And throughout our introduction to each other, you would talk about Joe and you were like, we got to do something with Joe. We got to do something with Joe. And so this was sort of like the next step of what we did. And it continues that joy of collaboration with all of us, you know.
Okay. And this question is for Joe. So while watching the sequel, I did notice that there are certain scenes that the camera is moving a little bit. There's like a kind of like a shaky cam feel. Was that something that you wanted to bring, like just to like that the audience can have that certain personal connection? Like, hey, this is just like if somebody was following the main character throughout the film, like a someone like a documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is that simple. You know, I teach film, and so I am forced to think about the psychology behind specific shots, specific framings, the use of different lenses, handheld versus on sticks, you know, like a tracking shot. And if I'm honest, you know, I don't know. It's just, how does the shot make you feel? And I think that it's probably safe to say that for most people, for most audience members, a camera that is completely locked off and rock solid and not moving gives you a different emotion than one that's kind of breathing a little bit. And so I wanted to give that like documentary, that sort of cinema verite feel to what we were seeing. You know, that is the emotion I was going for. And in Virgil Bliss, the first film that we did, we were really, you know, we were using a mini DV camera, which was kind of radical at the time. Like, people were really not using these little prosumer cameras, and they were so small you could just hold it in the palm of your hand and you know, and be your own sort of steady cam. And you know, we've obviously come a long way. The camera we were using on Bliss was a gigantic Alexa with, you know, it was very heavy, so couldn't really go for that verite handheld look. So we used, when it was on sticks, I asked our director of photography, Harlan Bosmajian, to keep the head loose so that he could move it a little bit, and so it just feels a little bit like it's breathing a little bit. It's not quite locked off, and maybe you'll notice it, maybe you won't. Sometimes, other times where it's actually really handheld, it is a bit more apparent. But the overall effect is to give that impression of a more cinema verite. This is something that's actually happening, and that was the intention behind that.
Okay.
And it has a practical component as well, which is that you can move a lot quicker that way, you know, when you are going handheld. But then it has the psychological advantage of giving that documentary feel, like you're watching something that's really unfolding.
Okay. And was there, besides the fact that you all wanted to collaborate once again and work on a new film or a new story, what inspired you all to go ahead and just and make a sequel for Virgil Bliss to now Bliss? What was there like a story that you all had like an idea from it, or was it that you guys just sat down and connected the lines on how this sequel was going to be?
I think we'd often thought about, you know, at the end of the original Virgil Bliss, uh, he's a man who had you know, come out of prison and tried to go straight in Brooklyn, New York, and it ends with in tragedy, and where he hasn't drank the whole film. He's really tried to abstain and be an upstanding citizen, and then he ends up killing his friend, and after a robbery, and then he sits down at a table and starts to drink. And so we always thought, well, and that's how the movie ends, you know. And so we thought, what happens to him now? Where did he go? What is he doing now? And so that was just the question that we started with. And based on the character, we thought, where would he have gone? Who where would he be working? You know, who would he meet? And so we just started there and then built the story out of that.
Okay.
I have to say, you reminded me of something, Clint. I did always feel kind of bad leaving Virgil the way we left him. I mean, I really loved that character, and he did have the best of intentions, and he worked really hard, and he just got, you know, he got dealt some shitty hands, and he couldn't deal with it, but he was a good guy, and we left him in the worst possible place, and I think maybe there was an impulse to like try and redeem him, and redemption really is from the beginning. It was like, this gotta be somehow redeem. This can't end the way the first one ended. Like, we don't want it to end sugary sweet and unreal, but we got to take him to another place than where we left him. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And a lot of audience members, I remember at the time, were upset that we left Virgil there because we were telling a story about recidivism and how it often does happen. And we were trying to stay away from the sort of cliched, you know, where everything works out in the end. And oftentimes it doesn't work out in the end in our society, and with a guy like Virgil Bliss. And we were young and going against the grain too. And I think I'm proud of how we made the movie, but I loved the character, and I wanted to see him do something else, you know. So 20 years later, we finally got around to doing that, to give him some kind of redemption.
That's great. Yeah, I did see that throughout the film. He's like thinking a lot, even though there's not that much dialogue of like the past, but you feel that he's thinking a lot of like the now and what's going to happen moving forward. So this question is for Clint and for Farrell. What how do you guys got prepared for your roles, especially for Farrell, that she does two different roles in the film. So she starts as one character and then shifts to another one with a different attitude, with different mindset. So how was the preparation to get prepared for these characters for Bliss?
I thought it was really fun. I mean, what a gift to get to be two different people in a movie. I liked, I mean, what I did, nuts and bolts, is I made different playlists for each character to connect me and to ground me. I would think about different parts of my body, and I would move in different ways. I mean, I tried as hard as I put on a wig, you know, like, Small differences, but it was really fun to build each of them and their backstories. I'm like I mean, what actor isn't a sucker for like an epic backstory? So I would like weave and weave and weave, and it's fun.
Where did you by any chance, because being the fact that one of the first initial character that you play is it uses a lot of alcohol, uses drugs, that were there any, I don't, I'm looking for the word, but did you get to separate from that character quickly when you finish filming? Because there's certain other actors or actresses that have played like these roles where their character, it needs a lot of like, has a lot of like mental health issues, or are addicts. They tend to, you know, it takes time to disconnect from what the film is to the real world. So was that difficult for you?
Yeah. Not like addict stuff, but like, yeah, it takes a while to shake off love and to shake off feeling and to it takes a while to shake off people, and it's sort of like a mourning process when you're finished filming when you're finished being a character. There's a certain sadness and grief when you let them go, because you're never going to be that person again, except unless you're Virgil Bliss and 20 years later you get to be that person again. But for the most part, you have to sort of bury these beautiful people that you've built. And it was really sad. The last day that we shot Amy, I was really sad, and she was really fun. And yeah, it's just it's hard to let go, but that's part of this job, is letting go all the time, and you're just constantly going to funerals for people that you've made.
Okay. And how about you, Clint? You know, like she mentioned, it's been a long while since you played the character. So how does it feel that after so long you got back to do, I would say, a redemption story for your character?
Um, it's great, and it's interesting in that we all, you know, all of us change, you know, through our life and from day to day, and year to year, and in this case, decade to decade. And so there was the thought of, this was Virgil Bliss. You know, I think we started the production in 1999 or something, somewhere around there, 2000, and who was a different person than he is now. Although his past is very real in that he did commit a murder, he is wanted for murder. And so we decided, well, he's going to go out to the desert and disappear and maybe fade away. And addiction has become part of his life as a coping mechanism for uh, for the regret that he has. I think that in the first movie, I think he really did kind of think, at least for to himself, he had fallen in love with Ruby. He never could get her or have a relationship. And so he's now out in the desert, and there's this deep longing for human connection, and at the same time, almost a denial that that's what he wants anymore, and he wants to just numb out, go to work every day, come home and die. And I think that's where Virgil is at that point. He's not going to turn himself in. He's not going to change his life. He thought that this is how things are going to end for him eventually. And then Amy, who Farrell does so beautifully, is sort of this spark of life in his life, even though it's codependent and they're both addicts. There's a certain caring between them, even in their own addiction, even if it's. And then when she dies, it throws him into a dilemma, because he has to start living again. He has to start at least making decisions in the moment. to save himself in spite of himself. And then Joe shows up, and there's that human connection. So I don't know if that was a long-winded way of speaking to character building, but I guess for me, when I start building a character, I'm building off of myself, and then filtering that through through how this person would act, how Virgil would act, which is, what would I do if I were in this situation? I didn't have the coping mechanisms that I do have in my own life. What if I didn't have those? And what if I had committed these crimes? And what if I felt life wasn't really worth living, except in a very rudimentary way? How would I behave in a day-to-day basis?
Okay. So, Joe, I have one quick question for you. Being the director, and the setting of the film being in a desert, I would say desert place or location, were there any difficulties for while filming? Being the fact that, if a little gust of wind passes by, there's going to be a lot of like sand around. So were there any difficulties while filming Bliss?
Yeah, I mean, there was it was a very gritty, dusty, windy location. Wherever we went, it felt like, we started in this barn, these stables, and that was just the air was just, you can see it in the film. It's just was full of dander and dust and grit. And it was getting in all the equipment, and it was all over you, and it was hot. And then when we moved more out into the desert, it was even more gritty and dirtier. And I mean, even the garage where we were storing our equipment and where we had kept all of our food and where we would eat our lunches was infested with black widow spiders.
It was?
Yes,
Absolutely. I mean,
I
it was,
forgot about
we were, oh my
Whoa.
God.
So glad you
I mean,
told
like,
me.
I've never seen a black widow spider before. And there we were, I was looking at hundreds of them, and babies. One morning I went in, and there were all these webs leading up to the craft service table with these teeny tiny black widow spiders crawling up and down. I was like, oh my God, this is like a horror movie. But so there was that. And then, and there was the owner, Joan Raquette, who owned the land that we were shooting on. There's cougars out there, there's all kinds of rattlesnakes, and so we had to think about this. We had a very young crew. I teach at Emerson College. We had several Emerson students out there. I felt a real responsibility to make sure that no one was carried off by a lion or something, got bitten by a snake. And also just, staying hydrated and staying out of the heat. It was like over 100 degrees out in Santa Clarita. We were shooting in July and August. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So there definitely were. And then the house where we were shooting was up on a hill, and we were recording. Obviously, there was so much dialogue, and there were so many scenes, where Clint and Farrell were in their respective characters were, having these long conversations. On one side of the hill was a working farm, like old McDonald's farm, had a cow, had chickens, had sheep, and any slight disturbance would set all of those animals off. Then on the other side of the hill, there was a gibbon preserve, and any slight disturbance would set these gibbons, which it sounded like a Hollywood sound effect of monkeys in the jungle going crazy, but they would start going crazy. And then next door to that was a kennel full of dogs. and then there would be people on motocross motorcycles tooling around in the desert. So all it took was one guy on a motocross motorcycle to disturb the kennel, which would disturb the gibbons, which would get the old McDonald's farm going, and then the wind. It was like so windy, and so yes, so it was very, very challenging, and we had to do. I was doing my own audio as well. And so I would be directing and I would be listening and I would hear the wind hitting Farrell's mic at the worst possible moment. Or a PA would be coming back with the lunch and would beep the horn and the cows would start and the horses would go crazy at just the wrong when Clint was saying something and I'm listening to this. It was really maddening. So yes, there were a lot of challenges.
Wow. So I would have a question for each and one of you. Do you guys have any type of like memory while you guys were filming?
All of them. It's all a memory. I don't know. Yeah.
Sure.
It was such a wonderful experience. Like, I just remember thinking, like, I'm going to try, my whole career is going to be trying to get back to this feeling of whatever this is, this sort of super independent filmmaking. It was wonderful. It felt like we were all busting our asses and it was really nice. Everyone was working so hard.
I have a memory of just feeling really, really blessed to be able to work with the people, with Farrell and Joe and everyone again. It was sort of a reunion with Joe but it was like, there's no time that passes really. And it was just a continuation of what we already do. And I kind of agree with Farrell. There was that feeling, the memory I had the most is when it was over, wanting to go back to that kind of process. Specifically in the movie, I think the scene with the hose where we walk outside and Dwayne puts the hose up to shower off, and Joe comes out of the house, and I didn't expect it to take me in as much as it did. It was a really intense scene, and there was so much trust there. It was really nice because I'm completely buck naked. I mean, I'm in underwear half the time, and then buck naked the rest of the time coming out of the house. And then after a while, you're like, whatever. But you're like, we were putting the hose thing, and then it just had its own magic where I was in the water, and then Joe comes out of the house, and she put her head against my chest and broke down. And it was a moment that we hadn't rehearsed or even really planned. And it was a really moving, I think, for everyone. So to me, that was a really wonderful moment. But the whole movie was that for me too.
Okay.
I think I'll say that when we were out in the desert, the burial scene, I was so worried that the sky was just going to be this flat, clear desert sky. And it was like the one time the entire shoot, and it just turned, it looked like something that had been made in like a special effects lab somewhere. It was just, the sky was unbelievable. And it stayed that way the entire time we were shooting and never happened again. And then in moments like that, I'm always looking for moments like that as like a sign from the gods that things that we've been given the pass, like everything's going to be okay. So that was definitely when we were out there and there were no rattlesnakes and no one was getting hurt. It was nice and cool and the sky was perfect. Like I was like, okay, this is great. So that memory sticks out for me.
Mhm.
That's yeah. I think that on that scene, there's like a scene where the moon is there, and
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you know, it was red, and I'm like, it mixes in with the situation completely. So I was like,
Yeah.
mind blown on that scene. Um, this would be my final question for each and one of you. If you could describe Bliss with one word, cannot use no two words, only one word. If you can describe the film in one word, what would it be?
Redemption.
Interesting.
Endurance.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, I feel all of the words there. So thank you, Clint, Joe, and Farrell. Thank you very much for giving us the time to talk about Bliss and this journey of, I would say, 10 years. Yes, from the first one to this one. Thank you very much for giving
20,
us the time.
20.
Yeah,
20.
23,
Oh.
22 years.
Okay, my bad. 22 years, a journey of 22 years, going back to seeing Virgil's redemption. And thank you very much for giving us the time. And I hope that we see either more of Virgil or any future characters that either play or future films from Joe. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, John. Thank you.